Now, most of you are high school students, right?
Yeah.
Taking it's not a concurrent class if it's at night, is it? So it's exciting to see that you guys are in your college classes already. If that comes on and shows like the computer, let me know. Do you want me to stand here?
That would be amazing.
Oh my goodness.
Do you want me to raise the board?
I don't care. I may turn around and write some things down too. At the main campus, and the interesting thing is you guys have brought me back into high school. Most recently, I taught Family and Consumer Sciences and English at Pleasanton High School. And a few years before that, I was actually at Prairie View. So I think both of them might be the competition. Is that right?
Only Prairie View.
So only Prairie View? Okay, so it's been plenty of years since I was there. But, since I don't have that up yet, and what I will do is share that presentation that I had with your instructor so that if she wants to share it with you guys, she can do that. Or if you want to pass around a paper with email, I can send it out, whatever you wanted to do. But today I've been asked to share with you some of the resources that's available for you through Fort Scott Community College, through the library, through there. So I want to invite you first to feel free to ever email me, call me if you need some help with any kind of research. And I'll write my email so that you can have that also. Well, can you see it well enough like that?
Yeah.
That's good if you have a situation where you just can't find anything. You have somebody to call now.
I'll write my name also. Do you guys have a librarian here at the high school?
Yeah.
Okay. Because some high schools, like when I was at Pleasanton, they didn't even have a librarian anymore. So you feel free to contact me at susie.a@fortscott.edu. I have answered questions in the evening through email. Even on spring break last year, I had some students that were working on research papers, and because I didn't go anywhere for spring break, sure, that's a great thing to do. And I was able to help them find what they were looking for. As we're going through the information that I wanted to share with you, most of it's on here in essence, either on the front or the back. But if you have any questions as I'm going, ask them. Like I said, I'm not referring to my presentation right now, so I may not think of something until I get to the end. It's still loading up here, like we might be able to get it on there. But I wanted to first tell you a little bit about the library down there. You are even welcome to come down there, but you'll probably find a lot of resources on through another website that I'm going to share with you. But the library, like I said, is at the main campus. It's in the big, tall building that you would see when you go down there. But our students actually there don't have a lot of physical resources. They're at the library. We have a very, very small library. I didn't walk through the library, did I, when we came through there? My library room is not even as big as that room. We have some fiction books, mostly nonfiction books. We get 3 newspapers. There's 2 local and the Wall Street Journal, and a few magazines. So we don't get a lot there even. But students will use the Kansas State Library as a resource. Do any of you have an account with the Kansas State Library? I wonder how you got one at the Kansas State Library. You can actually get an account with the Kansas State Library through any Kansas library. I'm not real sure if your librarian here at the high school has the account to do that, but I'm sure that, is there a public library here in Osawatomie?
Yeah.
I'm sure that they do. However, I brought some papers if you wanted me to create an account for you. Is that something you'd be interested in doing tonight, is signing up for that? What I'll do is just go to my stuff and get out of the camera and pass these around. I will not create the account tonight, but I'll take these home and create the account tomorrow and then email you your user ID. You'll also get a user ID email from the Kansas State Library. But what I'll do is pass these around. If you don't mind, just take one and pass it on. I'm not sure if I have enough markers for it, but pass them until they get out and then do it. It just asks for an email. So any email you want to use, whether it's, I'm sure you guys have a Fort Scott email too, but if you want to use a personal email, that's okay as well. your birth date, and then your first and last name along with the middle initial. But the Kansas State Library, on the front side of this, is going to show you how you're going to use that. The website is written on there somewhere. You can go through the fortscott.edu/library, and there's a link there to get to the Kansas State Library, or you can go to this website. And the reason I want to give you two of them is because I found out during that spring break time that if you're in different locations, you guys probably wouldn't have a problem, but the access IP address may affect how you access it and how well it accesses. For example, Prairie View, let's use them. Some of them lived over on the Missouri side. Does anyone in here live in Missouri? Okay. It just barely over the state line would cause them to not be able to access it. Now, when I contact the Kansas State Library, they tell you if you have an account through a Kansas library, you can access it in any state. It's true, but sometimes you have to use some of the different addresses to get to it. I find the one that works the best is the one that's on your paper that I gave you, that's the fortscott.edu/library, but sometimes we might have to try that, so just to give you both of those. You will access that, and for research purposes, databases are an excellent resource, and you have access as a member of the Kansas State Library to access the databases. Does anyone know what a database is? No? Do you remember?
Is it a large collection of books?
Well, very close. It has books too, but primarily articles. Journal articles, they might be newspaper articles, but they are a large collection of articles, and typically they are a more reliable resource. There's some things that you can do to make your search results within those databases work even better. Once you access, which it doesn't look like I'm still going to get to show you that, but once you get to the website, you have an opportunity. First, you need to log in, which that's when I create your account, you'll have a 6-digit user ID number. You'll use that number along with your birth date to log in. I'll have that in your email to remind you about that, and it'll also be in the email that the Kansas State Library sends you as well. If you don't get an email from the Kansas State Library or one from me, it means that I typed something wrong with your email, or I couldn't read it. I try to find out through instructors or something if it's done later like I did here. But if you don't get something by, let's say, tomorrow, well, you guys are going to be in high school. Do you get to check your email at all tomorrow?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So if you check your email, you should have something from me and from them by noon tomorrow. So if you don't, where am I? Use my email, send me a note that says, I haven't seen anything yet. I'll also send an email to Ms. Breedlove to tell her that I have finished and everyone should have an account by then. So once you log on using that 6-digit number and your birth date, then you will have access to lots of things. Tonight we're going to talk about those databases, but if you like to read, you also have access now to electronic books, the ebooks. You have access to audiobooks. There's even like manuals, some manuals on there, some stuff dealing with like how to with cars and stuff. So there's a lot of resources that's in there, so it might be worth exploring in there. If you have questions about how to use the ebooks or audiobooks, you decide you want to do that, another thing you can do is email me. I actually have a presentation for that too and a handout, so if you ever want me to send that to you, I can. Some of the ebooks and audiobooks work like a typical library. You might have 2 weeks to have them. You load it onto your device, and then 2 weeks later it's gone. They don't tell you anything, you just know you only have it for 2 weeks. Some of them actually stay there for as long as you want them there, which that's handy to me because if I have a favorite book or something that I might want to go back and look at, I still have it on my device and don't have to worry about it. So that's an interesting thing to do. But back on the databases, I can't remember if it's on there. It doesn't tell you, like somewhere between step 2 and step 3, since I can't show you with the computer, you will have to find the databases link. And to do that, across the top in blue, it says Kansans, librarians, and then there's a few other things across there. Under Kansans, there is, if you just hover over the word Kansans, there's a drop-down menu that happens, and you'll see online databases. So you'll just click on online databases. That will open a whole new page, and that page will have, if I guesstimate, probably 30 to 50 different databases. So you will have the opportunity to have, way more than hundreds of thousands of articles to search from. You can have that many in just one of the databases. They're broken down into different categories. So if you are doing a research paper on a health-related topic, because I taught family and consumer sciences, I always go with nutrition. There is a category of health-related databases. If you are doing something related to history, there's one that's history. The common one that's used quite often is just a general category, and that's the one I'm going to use as my examples for you as I'm talking tonight. One of the large multi-purpose databases is called Explora. It's from a company called EBSCO, but it will have many, many resources. So I always suggest if you don't know for sure what you want to do, try out Explora first. And here I'm going to try to write too. There's definitely many more that are excellent, but Explora is one that I like to use, and that's under the general category. Now, in any of these databases, and if you use 10, I would still even say this, I recommend that you create an account within each of them. So you might want to make a note with that. Doesn't cost any more to create that account. Step 4 says create an account within the database. You can do research without creating an account, but there's some benefits to creating that account. But I do want to say, if you forget or lose that 6-digit number for the Kansas Library, I can help you get that back. However, when you create an account within the databases, you'd have to do the thing like you've all seen it somewhere, forgot password or something like that. You'd have to do that because I wouldn't have access to that at all. But by creating an account within the databases, you are able to save articles in different folders. You're able to email things to yourself, which that can be beneficial if you are out of state and are wanting to work on something. You can share it with your instructor. My favorite tool, and that's what I wish I could show you guys, is a citation tool. But by creating the account, you have other opportunities. You can get to the articles without it, but it's beneficial to use one and within each of the databases. So let's say I am doing research. Think of even just a Google search in there. The search box, I call that a basic search. You can do a basic search within the databases also. So maybe I want to do a research on nutrition. Does this sound familiar? Same one I did it the other way.
No, you can do 25.
I'm adding that to it here in a minute. So in the basic search, I can search for nutrition. But I will tell you that when I do that search in a basic search, I am going to have something like 900,000 results. I don't know about you guys. Maybe in high school you have more time. But I don't have time to go through 900,000 results, even to look and see if they might work. So how many of you, if you had results like that, would look at the first 10, the first ones that come up on your page, and you'd use one of those? I would too. But those they aren't always the best results for you. So tonight I'm going to show you some techniques, tell you about some techniques that will help you narrow those down. And your instructors may also have some criteria that I can tell you where you would work with that also. Some of them are listed on the back, but I'm just going to talk through them. For starters, instead of using that basic search, under the basic search box, there's something that says advanced search, and that's on every one of those databases. So you can go to the advanced search and it will open up other options for you. You can put in nutrition just like you did before, but does anybody know, I don't know, it probably tells you in here, what are these three terms referred to? Anybody know? They're called Boolean terms. They're in that paragraph there. Boolean terms, and, or, and not. Those are things that will help you in your search criteria. So I'm going to say 900,000 results with nutrition, but if I put nutrition and diabetes, and it has drop-down menus for and, or, and not, so it makes it really easy for you. But if I put nutrition and diabetes, then it's going to look for any articles that have nutrition and diabetes together. So that's going to narrow things down. If I do or, it's going to look for any articles that have nutrition or diabetes. So that's going to be more results, which that's not what I'm going for right now. But there are times that if you put in a search criteria, you may not have enough results, and you might want to try that. The other part that I like to do is the not. So if I'm sticking with nutrition and diabetes, if I want to look at diabetes just in children, then I could put nutrition, diabetes, not elderly. So then it's looking for those criteria. Any articles that deal with nutrition, diabetes, and anybody that's not considered elderly in the article. That's going to narrow it down even more. So I go normally from, at that point, about 900,000 results down to probably 16,000. Still, it's a lot, but it's way better than it was. Another thing, and this I don't think is written down on here, but you will want to look for full text. So you might write that in your notes. There's a spot in the advanced search where you can click full text. And the benefit to that is if you don't click that, you may have some results that they're there, they look like great articles, but you have to go to another website and pay for them. So probably you don't want to pay for an article. I mean, I even went through a master's program and never had to pay for an article. If I was maybe working on a doctorate or something, I might be interested in buying one that's even higher quality, or not necessarily higher quality, more in-depth research. So using the full text feature. Another thing that's recommended by many instructors, and this is another point to make, instructors will often give you some criteria. Between one instructor may be different from another one, but many instructors will also suggest that you only check out peer-reviewed articles. And that's another checkbox, just like the full text. Sometimes they're on the left-hand side of the databases. In Explorer, that's where it is. Sometimes they're within that advanced search, but all of them have that option. Once I click on full text and peer-reviewed, my search results will go drastically down to maybe 2,000. So, and sometimes even more than that, but it gets it to a better, rules out some of them that I'm not interested in. Peer-reviewed, by the way, that means people that are in that profession. So say I'm looking at nutrition things, they may be reviewed by people in that profession, such as a dietitian. Not just another person reviewing, looking for like grammatical errors or anything. They are looking for correct information, and they would not be put on there if they were not accepted by their peers. So that's a great way to narrow that down also. Another thing to narrow the results down is to check out the age of the articles. Some instructors will require no older than 3 years. Some have it a little bit longer than that. There's one instructor down at the main campus that will allow even older than that if it pertains to the article and how it makes a point. But they have to hear that from that instructor or they can't use it. That instructor and them have to discuss that. So if I change it so that I am using between 2014 and 2017, it's even going to narrow it down even more. And again, that's in the advanced search, or there's a spot on the left-hand side in Explorer that's actually a sliding bar that you can adjust that years on there. So narrowing things down, we started out with just one term. We then used some Boolean terms to narrow it down. We did peer-reviewed and full text. And then we used the age of them to narrow it down. That will help. I will also say, I think it's very important when you are looking for research to look at different articles. Even if you find one article that you think would be great, don't give up. Look at some others. See if it supports that article. Going about that. That kind of follows through everything that's on here. I'm going to try to think of some of the other things that's in my presentation so that I can share with you. Yes?
We're gonna try, if we were to try, like, hooking up, like, this computer on that. But does that work? No, it doesn't. It's gonna have a- Okay. Well, I think that's the projector, not the computer.
I can't tell.
Yeah, what was the?
No, that's an Epson. So the Toshiba's is that computer. I don't know what
Yeah,
it's.
it's,
Yeah.
the screen won't come on.
If you. I didn't even ring. Did I stick my phone in? I could trigger my. I have it on Google. Do you guys use Google or do you use like Microsoft?
Yeah, we use Google.
I'm like a huge Google fan, and down at the college they use Microsoft. Here, let me, if you guys don't mind me referring to this, or is it?
This is great, guys. This is like the crux of all of the research you will do in your college career. Just this basic information is like the bottom line.
This will definitely, I mean, you can get even deeper, but the more that you know of this stuff, the easier it makes your research. But I really want to stress not settling for things. It is so easy to go with those first 10 results and go, I'm done with my research. I got what I needed. I just needed 3 articles. I have so many students that come in and go, well, my instructor tells me I have to print off 3 articles from the databases. Sometimes they come right in, they go right to their topic, they find 3 articles, they print them off. Later they come back looking for help because it didn't really do what they wanted it to. But some of them even have trouble trying to figure out the search terms that they want to use. Nutrition, seriously, if you were doing a nutrition thing, you want to be more detailed than nutrition because you really don't want to do just 900,000 results to start out with. So you want to figure out some more terminology. So I have students come in after sometimes it's the first time around, sometimes it's they didn't get the quality that they wanted and they come back in finally asking for help. But they'll go, I just can't find what I want. So I sit down with them. And by the way, sometimes they call and make an appointment with me. I'm nearly always there, but sometimes there's 10 students in there wanting the same help. And if they call and make an appointment, then I'm able to help them directly. So that could be the same thing. If you guys needed to make a phone call and talk to me, I could, if you email me, we could schedule times too if you wanted to do it that way. But they come in and I sit down and talk to them. What is it you're wanting to do? What are you wanting to look up? What is your topic? And the other day I had someone come in that their topic was immigration. That's even worse than nutrition because it's a hot topic right now, immigration. And I went, okay. So because I'm a former teacher too, I have to make you guys learn from your own mistakes. So I had them, okay, let's go to this database and look up immigration. Of course, there's a crazy, I mean, it was like 1 million and some results that came up for them. And they're going, see, I don't know what to do. That's why I chose these articles. I said, let's talk about it. What are you wanting to learn about immigration? What are you trying to do? So we sat and talked for a few minutes, and we were able to narrow down. First of all, they weren't interested in immigration that was like from Mexico to the U.S. They were more interested in the ones coming from, I can't even remember the correct terminology for it, like the ones that was, the terminology was they were being banned due to being ISIS countries. They were more interested in that. So we were able to bring that, use a Boolean term, and we used, not Asian. Let's say, just use the country of Afghanistan. We were able to do some search with immigration in Afghanistan. Then we taught it, of course, that made it more specific for them. We talked some more, and they were more interested in what it was doing with children. So we were able to narrow it down some more. So their topic wasn't just immigration. It was much more narrow than that, but they were starting out with this overwhelming search. that sometimes it's beneficial to get someone outside of your class, even your teacher. Don't even use your teacher sometimes. You can always use them. Go see if there's someone else, the librarian here, sometimes even your math teacher or your history teacher. If you're just talking to them, they can help you narrow things down and be a little more specific on stuff. I know one of the things I'm going to have a hard time telling you about because I went from using high school students, and I never shared this with high school students, to college students, which I do share it with, and you'll laugh at me when I tell you about it. But in any kind of search, you will want to consider how reliable that is, whether it is in the databases that should be better, or if it's just a Google search. And so let me put my acronym up here. And this is what I never wanted to tell high school students, so you guys don't get me in trouble with your teachers. It's the CRAP test. So when you're looking at any resource, whether it's on the internet through a Google search or an Internet Explorer search, something like that, or if it's within the databases, consider CRAP. And I'm going to tell you what these stand for, so if you want to write them down since they're not on that note, you can do that. The first thing is C, the currency. That means how recent is it? Many topics such as immigration, you're probably going to want to use current information, very current information, because of all the changes that's been happening related to that. Other topics, they haven't changed. Let's see if I can be smart enough and come up with something there. Something related to history in a way. That history hasn't changed. Immigration has, obviously, that probably wasn't the best example, but some of them haven't changed much, and you can go a little further back. But again, I want to point out, your instructors probably are going to tell you how old you can use. So pay attention to what your instructors are wanting you to do. The R is reliability. So with reliability, you're checking to see, does it make sense? Does it look like it is going along with what you've heard elsewhere? Also check other websites. See if that story is the same thing being told somewhere else, or exactly what spin is being played on it. With politics right now, and you guys have all heard the term fake news, you guys have to be knowledgeable. You have to check things out. So you're looking for reliability. I keep touching something and it keeps telling me I'm trying to undo something. The next one is authority. The first A is authority, and that deals with the author. Look for an author. Your first thing is, if there's not an author, it might not be the best source to use. But with an author, then you also want to look and see, what does that author know? What are their credentials? So if I wrote an article on, I wish I could remember the term. Is there any ag people in here? Well, okay, same difference. There's some grass, like something Lespedeza, and I'm like, that's something I know nothing about. So if I wrote an article on whatever the first word is, Lespedeza, or any horticulture thing, if I wrote an article on that, and you went to find out something about me, and it says that I'm a former FACS teacher, a former English teacher, and now a librarian, do I have the authority to write on horticulture? No. So you go, she's just looking up her own information. She really knows nothing about it. So you want to check that out. The second A is accuracy. Again, that plays in with double checking at other places. Look to see that everybody is on the same boat. My last one, the P, is purpose or point of view, and that's my favorite one. You would want to check to see that the topic doesn't have a bias to it in the article or the website that you're looking at, or even a book. For example, back to my nutrition. Maybe I want to write a paper explaining how vegetarianism is not healthy. And I happened across an article by the National Beef Council supporting my beliefs. Is it biased?
Yes.
Yes. The Beef Council is going to tell you you don't want to go on a vegetarian diet, your full-fledged vegetarian diet, because we want you to buy our beef. So pay attention to their point of view. Where is it coming from? Which leads me to another part, and this may also have some things for you to write down. The articles the websites, if you use websites, if you go and use websites, now we're off of the databases again, but a website that has .gov or .edu is going to be more reliable than one that's a .com. These are education-related websites. These are government-related websites. These are commercial websites, so they are selling something. Some way around it, somewhere they are selling something. Occasionally, although I don't come across it very often, you might see some that's a .info or .name. I have seen .nets. These are also sketchy ones. They're not as bad as a .com, but they're kind of sketchy. Oh, another one that would be okay, although I've never came across one, but it may be, I haven't been looking for military type stuff, but .mil, that's a military website. These are one, .gov, .edu, and .mil would be better websites than using .com, .info, .name, and .net. So keep those in mind when you're looking at your research. Do your English teachers here tell you to use Wikipedia? Good. Wikipedia is not a resource to use for research papers. Now, I'm going to tell something, but don't get me in trouble. If you don't know something about the topic that you've selected, so you don't know much about immigration, if you put in immigration in a search, and Wikipedia is the first one that comes up, like almost every time. I like to look at Wikipedia to get a vague idea of what I might be looking for. Is this a topic that I want? I have to keep in mind, though, that anybody can change those articles. So it's not a reliable resource, but it could give you some ideas. Here's the thing to remember. At the bottom of every Wikipedia article, there should be a reference or a bibliography. Those could lead you to a worthwhile resource. So using those bibliographies in the Wikipedia to get to a possible worthwhile resource is usually acceptable. But again, remember what I said about the crap test. Even if it leads you to something else, look at those key topics related to a reliable resource. How about Google? Do you use Google as a resource? You can't. I always got upset. Sorry to pick on you guys. For high school students, I would assign a presentation and students would use pictures in their presentation, which is fine. But I always required that they included those pictures in a bibliography also, a reference page. And I don't know how many times it would come across that their resource was a google.com and then it'd have all those other letters and names after it. Google is not a resource. If you go to Google and there's a picture you want, there's always that spot that says go to website or something like that. When you click on that, it would take you to the website that would be the resource for that picture, and you could use that. What I like to keep in mind for Google is think of Google as your librarian. And you go to your librarian and you tell her you want a book on immigration. The librarian will then take you to the books to give you that resource. Google, you go to Google, it will take you to a spot to find that resource. So think of Google that way. Let's see what else I had on here. Search. That's actually all I had for the presentation. I will still share that presentation. Does anybody want me to send it directly to you? I'll send one to you. But if that's easiest, then you can send it out through your, if that's okay, we'll just do that, okay? It is a Google presentation, so I'll send that to you. I'd like to stress to you before I finish, though, really, if you have questions, it doesn't bother me to get phone calls. You guys want the phone number too? Although at this phone number, it's going to be during the day, so you guys will be in school too. But it's 620-223-2700. And then the extension for the library is 3441. I really don't mind phone calls, but I like, as a student, I like to have something to refer back to, and so emails, I can type all kinds of stuff to you, and you can have it for future reference too. And,
One of the sources that I came across is KSLIB.
That's another website. That's the same one.
Okay, I wondered about that.
Yeah. So I gave you, wherever it is, this website. You could also do, I think it has the www in front of it, KSLIB. I think it says .info after it. It goes to this same thing.
And one thing I kept running into is that I would only get the abstract, and then I would have to pay for the article.
If you click on the full text, it'll take care of that. In my presentation, you would have seen it. When you first have an article show up, oh, I'm glad you asked that because I didn't tell about this. When you have your list of articles, so you have your first 10 that you're seeing, and you see one that looks like you'd be interested, it always has a little blurb right there about it. But when you click on it, it will take you to an abstract, which is an abstract is a summary of the article. And so that abstract will give you more details than the little blurb. And that's when you can decide, would I like to look at this full article or is this not worth my time? And like your instructor said, if you haven't clicked on the full text, you could get the full text there from the abstract, be led to it. But otherwise, it's going to take you to a website where it's wanting you to pay for it. Or log in using your school's something or other on some website. There's something like BNN or something like that. That it looks like you could do it. But unless your school's there, you won't be able to do it. It'll just say wrong password or something like that all the time. So that's why I would always suggest that you do the full text. But once you have that abstract, somewhere on that page, and it's different between each of the databases, there should be a link that is a website link that when you click on that, it would take you to the full article. Or some of them actually say something like see full text or something, and you click on that button usually then, and it'll take you to the full article. Sometimes the articles are short, like half a page. Some of them, the ones that a lot of the students use down at the main campus, may be like 14 or 15 pages. They can get much bigger. The ones that you would probably be paying for could be, like I know a person that did a paper and research for their dissertation for a doctorate, and their paper was over 100 pages. So it gets quite large. So wouldn't that be a fun paper to have to write that got to be over 100 pages? But anyhow, once you click in that article, I had mentioned to you about emailing or putting things in folders. Most of them on the right-hand side, they have several little icons. I'm almost certain that the first one is a Google Classroom. Do you guys use that here?
Yes.
I don't use Google Classroom, so I don't know anything about that. I don't know if the instructor has to use that button or not, but there's a button for that. There's one that looks like a little yellow folder, kind of like my red one that's over there. That's the one that lets you put the article into a folder so that you can access it later from your account instead of having to figure out what terminology you used. I've had students that print off their article because there's one instructor down there that makes them turn in the entire article with their paper. And I guess that's her way of making sure there's not been plagiarism with it. But they'll print off the article, turn it in with their first rough draft, and there's changes that they need to go in and use that article for, but they didn't save it in a folder, they didn't email it to themselves, they didn't make a copy, so they're up in the library trying to figure out how did I search that to come up with that title. Sometimes they have it already in their bibliography and they can find it, but a lot of times they're out of luck and they have to redo that part of their article. So that's why